And may I extend a welcome to our visitors in the back there. So civic affirmation, this is the first time we do this. We, the councillors of the Armidale region, declare that we will undertake the duties of the office of councillor in the best interest of our community and faithfully and impartially carry out the functions, powers, authorities and discretions vested in us to our best of our skills and judgment. We acknowledge the traditional custodians of this land and pay our respects to elders past, present and emerging. The Armidale regional community pays tribute to their love of land, love of people and love of culture. Now, to warn people, this meeting is being audio and video recorded, and the recordings of the non-confidential parts of the meeting will be made available on the internet. No other persons are permitted to record the meeting unless specifically authorised by council to do so. All speakers for the Have Your Say are requested to ensure their comments are relevant to the particular agenda item. The chairperson may withdraw the privilege to speak where a speaker makes personal remarks or criticisms or use abusive or inappropriate language. Speakers do not enjoy any special protection arising from comments made during council meetings and should therefore refrain from making defamatory remarks or personal defamatory remarks against any individual. Now, can I ask you all to make sure your phones are on silent or turned off, please? So thank you. We have a request for a leave of absence by Councillor Tiley. Could I have a move and accepted? Councillor Widders, Councillor Mratt, all those in favour? Carried. Any disclosure of interest today, councillors? Councillor Widders?
Yeah, just in regards to Councillor Martin's notice of motion, this conflict of interest, I was in the project reference group for the new high school, non-pecuniary, won't affect my judgment or anything else like that.
Thank you. Any other councillors? Now, Elizabeth O'Hara. Yes, please. If you can come up to the podium there. Owen, can you switch the mic on direct? You've got just 5 minutes, please, Elizabeth.
Sorry. Do you say your time starts now? Yeah, now. Okay. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to this meeting. I too would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land upon which we are meeting today. I wish to address matters raised in submissions to do with 9.1. So it's what I'm going to call the budget, because I'm really limited in my vocabulary about these things. And I just want to address particularly but not only, the group of documents in the things that are with the papers, sorry, the attachments, that's the big word I was after, thank you, from pages 22 to 23 of the agenda. And I'd just like to explain a little bit about why I've come to be here. I took part in the discussions which resulted in the community's strategic plan, and I found that to be a really powerful experience. It was interesting to meet people from across the region, and it was so powerful to be with people who really did all have the best interests of the whole of the council area in hand. So that, as you all know, is the plan which underpins the 4-year delivery program and the operational plan which we're looking at today. I also attended the Black Mountain presentation of the draft delivery plan by CEO Susan Law on Thursday the 6th of June, and I do want to start by apologising if my understanding of matters is flawed or incomplete. I am not well versed in council's policies and practices, but I will do my best not to defame anyone. From the presentation at Black Mountain, I understood that water and sewage considerations and the significant reserves attached to them are separate from other expenditures, and that the general reserve was anticipated of perhaps $4 million and perhaps even $5 million. And we a group of people and I sat down and devised the NEGIT submission on that sort of basic premise. So if that's completely wrong, well, that's a bit of a flaw underpinning it. However, a number of submissions have pointed out that it's extremely difficult to ascertain from the papers what the surplus actually expected to be is. So I feel fairly confident we can sort of proceed as though that's a reasonable sort of position to start from. I noticed that in response to the observation in submission number 2, Dale Curtis's submission, that the way of arriving at their figures was at least arguable. The Council's response was, Council was in the bottom 10 councils in New South Wales for unrestricted cash and internal reserves in the 2017-18 financial year, and this has necessitated a focus on improving the cash position. That is simply not a convincing reason to hold money when it could be put to immediate beneficial use. In the Council agenda papers, our submission, the New England Greens submission, is bracketed with a number of others, and the Council response to them is, by achieving a stronger financial position through a responsible budget and operational plan in 2019-20, Council will be in a better position in the future to undertake activities for climate and environmental protection. I urge councillors to challenge this response, to reject the budget as it stands and consider implementing...
Elizabeth, just 1 minute.
Yeah.
1 minute.
Oh, is that all I've got? Gosh, I've got heaps more to say. And to acknowledge that what we are in at the moment is a climate emergency. This is the emergency that we are saving money for. And I'd like particularly to acknowledge that things like the Lowry Institute, the 2019 poll has said that 6 in 10 Australians, 61% in 2019, say global warming is a serious and pressing problem and we should begin taking steps now, even if this involves significant costs. So people out there are prepared to pay to make some responses. So just very, very quickly, I won't have time, but I do have a visual aid in response to one of the, in our submission it's in black and white, which means that you don't get the full effect. One of our concerns is, as you would probably be aware, air quality and wood smoke, and particularly there are a couple of submissions that deal with this, so I'd really ask you to look at those carefully. But this screen grab from Thursday the 13th of June 2019, 11 p.m. to 12 a.m. in Armidale. Armidale's air pollution is hazardous on the New South Wales Monitor. All other sites in the state are blue, which is good, or which is good, or very good, which is green. Okay, so we have this real problem. I think.
Elizabeth, that's your time.
So I'd ask you really carefully, I'd ask in conclusion that you reject the budget as it stands and look carefully at those submissions.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Moving on to confirmation of minutes. Can I have a move and a second, please? Councillor Witters, Councillor Morat. Are there any corrections, Councillor Robinson?
I just wanted to make one minor correction, that I checked the video and what I actually said in relation to 97-19 is that instead of the civic prayer, rather than instead of the affirmation, and maybe that could be corrected to say civic prayer instead of affirmation.
Thank you, Councillor Robinson. Any others? Okay, those in favour? Those against? Carried. There's no mayoral minute. So moving on to item 8.1, traffic concerns. This is a notice of motion from Councillor Martin. So I presume, Councillor Martin, you're going to move. Seconder, please. Councillor Gillespie. Councillor Martin.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. This one's actually pretty straightforward and fairly self-explanatory, but I just think it's advisable that we have a look at the impact on the traffic around the new super school now before it opens and before we have a lot of issues that are probably likely to come up as a result of that. A couple that I thought of in particular was the Miller Street, Kentucky Street intersection, which I know through the RMS we're looking for funding to get a roundabout there, but I think maybe we could hopefully prioritise that one a little bit more. And another one that concerns me greatly is the fact that we don't have that many crossings across the Demerit Creek, and we're hoping one day it will rain again, so I think that we need to look at that one a bit further as well. This will bring about a lot of changes in the flow of the traffic, which is probably now going in the opposite direction, and it would just be great if we could get on top of it before it happens and address some of those issues.
Councillor Gillespie. Now, can just Councillor Martin and all councillors just be aware where your microphone is, because I know Councillor Martin was a little bit quiet there. If you can just bring... So, Councillor Gillespie.
I've probably never been accused of being quiet, but anyway, I'll try to speak up. Look, me being a Marsh Street resident, I've seen that the traffic that's actually going up past our place all the time, going to up to Javel, I suppose it's what you still call it, where both the high school students are going now. So all of our secondary public students are going up there. It is chaos. There's a lot of people. The buses have troubles. There is a lot that we didn't anticipate, I believe. So when we turn it around in a couple of years' time, and we've got all these vehicles and domestic cars and buses going up to the super school, we've got Dangle Street with the viaduct, which is with the overhead bridge, which is a bit of a bottleneck at times. We've got Markham Street that does run pretty well because it's just the railway crossing there with the lights. But what I think would be a really good idea is where you've got Drummond School and you've got Niagara Street there, which actually you go around and under the viaduct and then back up through, and you've also got Miller Street. Those two can join up and going over the railway line, obviously, and that looks like a pretty obvious one for me to do, as well as the old white elephant of getting rid of the viaduct so that buses can. Some of the buses can't go through there, some of the heavier vehicles can't go through there, and then heavier vehicles can actually, they don't have to go out and go in front of the school. They can keep, that west end side can keep all their northerly going heavier vehicles away from the school. But I really do think the main thing is your Miller Street and Niagara, to have a good look at that and see if we can go from there. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. A speaker, now we've changed, because they've changed our code of meeting practice, we now have a mover, seconder and a speaker against the motion. So a speaker against. Councillor Robinson, you speaking against?
No, I want to speak for.
Any person wish to speak against? Otherwise, Councillor Robinson.
Yeah, I think this is a great idea, and I think it could also be combined into a study that encourages walking and cycling or active transport to schools for the multiple health benefits that will result for our community. And maybe we can even do that if we get funding for the bicycle and pedestrian plans. So I think it's a great idea, and let's expand it and make it a safe and healthy community, this school. Thank you.
Any other speaker? Now, since there's no speaker again, Councillor Winters.
Councillor put that 2-4, so I don't.
So I'll put that to the vote. Those in favour? Unanimous. Thank you. Item 8.2, Regional Marketing Fund. Councillor Bailey.
Mr Mayor, as this is very close to a motion I moved in November, I'm happy to withdraw this motion so long as the November motion goes forward to the Local Government Association Conference, which is to be held later this year in Sydney.
Yes, we can. The notice of motion for going to the local government will be put up to next meeting, if I remember right. So if you remind us, we'll put it up to the.
Well, that motion is already there because
Yep.
we've moved it in November.
Yep. Okay, thank you. Um, 8.3, grant funding. Councillor Robertson.
Yes, I'll move.
Seconder. Councillor O'Connor. Councillor Robinson.
think it's important to demonstrate our interest in this topic and formally endorse what's happening. And this will be a great benefit to council because of the rumours that are going round that have been pretty terrible. It's our job to reassure our community, and this is one way of doing it. So I hope everybody will support it.
Councillor O'Connor.
Hang on, is that me? I think it's self-explanatory. There's answers to questions at the end of the agenda relating to particular projects which are basically not proposed to go forward in this current budget. And I think everybody would have, if you've read them, you'll see that there are a number of quite important projects that we're seeking approval for extension of funds, but we don't have a result yet. And I think it's to those projects that this motion refers, and others that we may not know about. It's very important, I think, to see not only this motion, but the whole budget process we're going through at the moment in a wider context. If we were doing a PESTEL analysis, we'd note that the current financial and political circumstances, that we just had 2 elections, and we all know that the state government in particular has been pretty generous in the last couple of years to the regions in a way that hasn't happened for a long time and is unlikely to happen in the near future, or probably for a long time too, as a result of their divestment of many state-owned assets. So we've basically been awash with state government money, and they've been in the process of divesting themselves of that and building infrastructure projects, large and small. And this council, the previous council, and the council in its initial phase 1 of merger, were all in a position where we really had to put up our hand to grab what we could while we could, which has led to a bit of imbalance, which we've discussed in workshops in relation to council's capacity to actually complete those projects with its own workforce and resources. But we can't really afford to let that money go, because we don't know when we're going to see that kind of largesse coming from the state government again. So I think it's really, really careful that we keep a close eye as a governing body, and encourage, our CEO and our executive leadership team to keep a very close eye that we don't lose the money that's always granted on a time condition, so that if we don't complete by a certain time, then the money goes back to the state government unless we can negotiate extensions of time. So that's why I support this very sensible motion, and I would urge others too, so that we don't let things funding for projects that have had to be deferred or have been chosen to be deferred slip away.
A speaker against the motion? Okay, I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Those against? Hang on. Those against? 5. And those for, sorry? 4. Motion lost. 8.4, operating result following amalgamation. Councillor Robinson. Move. Seconder. Councillor O'Connor. Councillor Robinson.
Well, I submitted this motion because I was very concerned about the budget and the fact that we can't afford to do what's needed to achieve our environmental and sustainability objectives in the delivery plan. In fact, this was actually pointed out by more than half the submissions that we'll see today on our plans and budget, and are to be considered at today's meeting. As has been pointed out today, I believe that a healthy council requires a healthy environment as well as healthy finances. And so I hope that drawing attention to this problem will help us attract funds for at least some of the necessary measures to achieve these important environmental and sustainability objectives that we all want to see happening. We also know, and it's been seen many, many times before, that restructures are difficult and expensive, and often the budget blows out. They seem to end up more expensive than people expect. But we are tackling this problem. We have a transformation programme that will hopefully get our finances on track in the near future. So what we need is a small amount of short-term help. And that's why really last December we resolved to call on the New South Wales Government and the Australian Government to put an end to cost shifting because of the impact that has on our communities. Now, if we are to be judged on whether the operating result in our audited accounts shows a surplus or a deficit, then it's worth noting the change over time in that measure, and that the two previous councils in the last full financial year before amalgamation both had surpluses. And simply by noting that we've had difficulty achieving that post-amalgamation is just one indicator of the difficulties of restructuring. And also, as we've seen, 42% of recently amalgamated councils have had similar difficulties in the last financial year. Maybe by just noting that amalgamations can work out more expensive than initial predictions, we can argue the case for additional help to meet some of those important environmental and sustainability targets in our delivery programme. That, as we all know, have been identified as important by more than half the submissions that we've on our budget and our operating plan. Perhaps if we can get a little bit more money, we'll be able to achieve some of those important targets, and therefore it's simply worth noting that and perhaps doing something about it if we possibly can.
Councillor O'Connor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Look, the point that I want to make about this, and the reason I'm seconding this and supporting this, is that we've come through a pretty unusual circumstance as a council. We're the product of a recent merger since 12th of May 2016. Now, during that process, the government, New South Wales government, forced that merger, and what they did was offer as an incentive, I suppose, a fixed amount to every council that they were forcibly merging, and that was, for those in the public or those that might have forgotten, there was $10 million to go towards infrastructure backlog if there was a merger of two. It was more if there was a merger of three. But for us, it was $10 million for the infrastructure backlog, and that was divided in this way: $9 million for infrastructure projects designed and accepted by council, and there was $1 million to go to community projects. They all had different names. But the approvals process for that was the administrator, our own councillor Ian Tiley, as well as officers of DPC and the local member. Obviously, they were highly contestable, and not everything got through. The other part of that $15 million was $5 million for implementation of things like changing livery, but much more expensive things like changing IT systems, staff, all the things behind the scenes that go to knitting, two councils into one. The other aspect of this was the fact that the merger was forced on the basis of a determination that both councils were not fit for the future financially. Time tells a lot of story, and hindsight, gives you 20/20 vision. But the fact is that phase one of the merger produced budgets that were, as Councillor Robinson's information shows, not as profitable, not as healthy, and financial outcomes that showed that there was a problem financially, and we're trying to grapple with that as best we can. And I think we've got, there's no problem with that. But it's not. I think it's really foolish of us to think that we should just live with what it cost. There are either two scenarios, or there could be both. One is that it actually cost more than the $15 million to merge the councils, and that's just a cost, a reality that the state government should, acknowledge now and assist us with. The other possibility is that maybe spending wasn't done in quite the right way, but that entire process was under the very close supervision of the state government through its Department of Premier and Cabinet. And I'll tell you an example. I was on the Local Representative Advisory Committee at the time, and there was I tried with another councillor who was then on that committee to make communication with the then Minister for Local Government about our financial issues through the merger. I did this in the proper way through Honourable Minister Adam Marshall's office, but the stern reply to that request just for some information or assistance was nothing, no response. Over months and months and months and months, there was no response from the then Minister. And when I approached Mr Marshall's office, to find out how we could get a response, he said, there's nothing I can do. She's busy and, or she's chosen not to respond, and that's the end of it. So there was absolutely no way in which the community at that time could do anything other than just accept what was given. But I think we're in a very different circumstance now, where it's demonstrated by the figures, they don't lie, that the cost of merger has been more than we can really afford. The other relevant fact is that the city mergers all had allocations of Treasury allocations for their merger, but they didn't go ahead because of legal action that they took, which did actually ask some very embarrassing questions of the state government and make adverse findings to the state government in relation to the financial underpinnings of their decisions to merge lots of councils. Long story short, there's a bucket of money that's not been spent on the forced merger project relating to those councils that the courts ruled were not to be merged. So there's money there, and I think it would be really irresponsible of us not to go forward and just point out the difficulties that we're having, which could be absolutely expected, given that we were deemed to be not financially fit for the future. We need some help. It's a simple thing.
Councillor O'Connor, time.
Thank you,
So-
Mr Mayor. So let's go with this.
Councillor Widders used to speak against.
Yes. And just listening to both Councillor Robinson and O'Connor, sort of just deciding on whether I've read these properly. So if I haven't read them properly, I apologise. But for the 3, 4 and I suppose we haven't done 5 yet, but to me, having listened to what they've said at the last council meeting and at the extraordinary council meeting we had here just before the last council meeting, to me it still seems like a backdoor approach to try and change a budget that we haven't adopted yet with these motions. And I'm just a bit concerned. I do appreciate the effort that Councillor Robinson's put into these. It has got me thinking about different ways, and I also understand some of the possible frustrations that could be there. But again, we've got to look at, if it's around, to me it seems like these are around the budget. I could be wrong, but it's one of those things where sometimes you've got to make hard decisions, and that's what we're trying to do with a motion later on, is make hard decisions around a budget. And I think some of these motions are a way to try and get, because they didn't move around the second, they didn't get what they wanted in the original things for the motion when they got put up a couple of meetings back, that they're underhanded ways of trying to get the budget stopped or changed.
Speaker 4, Councillor O'Brien, you wish to speak for the motion?
Yes, I'd like to speak for the motion. The harder thing is, I can't talk to him directly, Councillor Widders through the chair. The harder thing is to actually fight for something that's just plain wrong. And it's plain wrong, the cost shifting. The cost shifting is in so many levels, and what we're asking, the harder thing is to say, let's roll, let's just, the easy thing is to say, let's just roll over and let our council and let our community suffer, because we won't fight for exactly what we deserve. While we applaud the council's right to implement a responsible budget, and the efforts to do this are spot on, I think some of the justification for the surplus, that one of it is that it's a buffer against state and federal government cost shifting, is like rolling over. Why should the community suffer, and why should the community have important projects, and some of those are really important for the health of the community, and for the entertainment and for tourism, a whole range of things. Why should they suffer because we won't fight back? We've started to fight back on some issues. I applaud the mayor's. I think it was last time when you about the emergency service levy. Was that you? How you objected to the transfer of the emergency service levy? That was you, right? Yes. But there are many other things that the local government of the New South Wales local government are kicking up a fuss about. Are we on board? I mean, there should be money for the joint allocation for the joint organisations. We're asked to prepare Crown land preparation stuff. We're paying for that. We're paying for a whole range of other things like waste levies. They've been talking about waste levies of $720 million that we could reinvest and in a statewide scheme to bring down waste generation. There's a whole lot of issues we could be on board with the New South Wales local government to fight against the cost shifting and the money that we are paying at the expense of our community. It's not just a matter of people going, oh, we're not, we want to spend more money. We deserve that money. We should be fighting for that money. And the hard thing to do is what Councillor O'Connor and Councillor Robinson have suggested to do, is that we as a group fight to get what we deserve. Send them the bill. Send them the bill and then send in the debt collectors as we do with anybody else. They are ripping us off and we actually and our community deserve more and we should be fighting for it. Thank you.
You speak against the motion. Councillor Gray.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This motion doesn't appear to have anything to do with cost shifting. It's to do with the forced amalgamation, and those funds have already been delivered by the state government. The important thing here is that we can sit here and become a handout, waiting for the handout from state government council, or we can be a proactive council that moves forward, makes some tough decisions around being fiscally responsible and not overly relying on state government for handouts. There are obviously some grant money, etc., that is available, and where applicable and where possible, absolutely take advantage of applying for those grants. Right now, we are in a financial situation where we need to be frugal. We need to make sure that we're doing our due diligence, which I believe we have, and let the community know that it is in their best interest that we are back on track financially as soon as possible.
A speaker for? If not, Councillor Robinson, you're right to reply.
Yeah, even though it might not seem so, this really is about rate pegging and cost shifting, because the money that we receive from other levels of government has decreased substantially, and the things that we have to do to benefit our communities has increased as services have been withdrawn from state and federal government and are now placed as a burden on councils. And the best example of that was New South Wales local governments saying that in 1996 we had 1% of GDP was given to local authorities to do their work. Now it's only 0.55%. That's a 45% reduction in our federal assistance grant. So it is about cost shifting. It's also about the other things that are putting a burden on our finances. That means that we have to try and do what we can, and that has meant dropping important environmental and sustainability projects from our budget so that we can't actually meet our delivery plan or delivery programme. So it is about rate pegging and cost shifting, and the fact that the transformation programme will kick in and will make us more efficient. But if we don't ask for more money, or we don't consider asking for more money in the meantime, we will really end up in hard times, and that will not benefit our community. And I hope that every single person in this room really wants to benefit our community, as as was suggested by the submissions on our budget and our operational plans. We should be standing up for our community, and when we see problems, we should be speaking out. Thank you.
Okay, I put that to the vote. Those in favour of the motion, raise their hands. Those against? Motion's lost. Moving on to item 8.5, unrestricted cash ratio. Councillor Robertson, you wish to move this?
Yeah, I'll move it.
Seconder? Councillor O'Connor. Councillor Robinson?
Well, the main reason for putting this up was to council because I thought it was important to note that our audited financial statements show we met this benchmark, because some of us received information to the contrary. And it's really good to let people know when we do things right and achieve required targets. So, well done. I would also say that wise management in difficult circumstances means making the best of what we have. We've coped with one of the worst droughts on record and also carted water to Guyra without going bankrupt. And we also know that other councils in New South Wales are in a worse financial position, and they're also coping. And that's partly because the cost of natural disasters, such as having to cut water, is often covered by other levels of government. So let's just note this issue and say that we achieved the target, and well done, and just correct any misinformation, any information that was provided to the contrary.
Councillor O'Connor?
Matter of any contention.
A speaker against? If not, I'll put that to the vote. Those in favour of the motion? Hang on. Hands again, please. Those against? Motion lost. Now, moving on to item 8.6. The Library
Excuse me,
Strategic...
Mr.
Councillor Gray?
Can I suggest a procedural motion to do items 8.6 to 8.12 in globo?
Do I have a seconder for that? Councillor Maria? Councillor Gray?
The information that's provided in these motions have already been provided through councillor workshops and briefings. The information is readily available. Clarification can be given at any point for any councillors that require clarification. It also means that if we do one at a time, it's literally going to take us about an hour and a half to get through them all at the most. So maybe even an hour, and I'd certainly like to get home tonight. And also that the request for the substantial number of reports, I think, is unreasonable on staff. The reports all added up would probably take a week to 2 weeks to prepare, and I'm pretty sure ratepayers' money can be better utilised than on writing reports that we've already got the information for.
Okay, procedural motion. I'll put that to the vote. To those in favour that 8.6 to 8.12 are treated in globo. And that's carried. So we're moving on to Councillor O'Connor there, your motion. So I presume you moved that 8.
Oh yeah, look,
Can I second it for Councillor O'Brien? Councillor O'Connor?
Oh look, I'm quite happy for them to be dealt with in globo. They are separate questions, but you know they all relate to similar matters. Although I think there's 2 items here, so I'd just like to say that on absolutely no basis do I intend to delay us by an hour and a half or even more than about 5 minutes on this. They're just simple questions. I'd also like to correct Councillor Gray on the fact that this information is already available. The reason it's here is because it's either not been made available or I've made requests through the normal channels and I've been refused that information. So I'm just putting it in a formal way so that it can be addressed. So I'll go through them one by one, but as quickly as I can to assist Council. The reason that I would like 8.7, which is 8.6, which is in relation to the 21st Century Library Strategy Plan, the matters here simply relate to that item which has been referred to in some of our notes and responses and press releases, but there's been no identification of what it is other than to say it hasn't happened yet or it's not actually a document, but it's a plan. I'd just like a very quick response to where it's up to, what it is. And the reason for this is that, as many of us will be aware, the communities have showed some concern about what's happening with the, particularly the Armidale Regional Library and the transformation program, and I just want to clear the air about it and get some information to us. As set out in that motion, which is simply that we basically get a little bit more of a heads up about what's being planned and what's happening there so that we can reassure the community. So that's that one. Let's go on to 8.7. Similarly, we had an excellent meeting with the town, with Mr James McTavish last night, who's the Town Water Commissioner and the Water Supply Coordinator. And he gave us a lot of information, but I went back over this to see if James's briefing last night to us actually covered these, and they actually don't, but it's all of these questions around the water restrictions in our water situation relate to details that I've sought answers to and been they've been declined to date, but they're the sort of matters I think that Mr McTavish made very clear that we should have out on the table as between our staff and the governing body, and they relate to things like how is our community responding to water restrictions? Are they actually using less? There's been some sort of suggestion that they're not. If that's the case, we as councillors and under our statutory role to communicate with the community, we need to know that the community is or isn't responding to the water restrictions, which is supposed to generate a reduction in consumption. There is a suggestion in comments made by the CEO, I think, that there hasn't been a good response to reduction in consumption, and I think that's a matter that's of critical importance, and Mr McTavish and the whole lot of us would agree that we need to be on board with that information. So that's that one. And just a bit of background, some detailed background on when the triggers were reached under our current water plans and drought plans, because there's one for Guyra and one for Armidale, and when the restrictions were in place. I just want that this is not a long report. This is information that I'm sure is already available. I'm just asking that it be shared with the governing body. I would like to know that what is the cost of water carding. We've been given some estimates, but I'd like to know if there's an opportunity cost involved in that in relation to other water measures that we could have taken. That one, we've had some information, but not a full information. We go to 8.9. I've been asked questions by the community about what is the situation with the Guyra water treatment plant. Is it in a state now to be ready to take the untreated water that is due to be released to it when the pipeline is completed in the middle of August? Some people, I don't know, and I'd like to have an answer to that. Do we need to do further upgrades there? I understand that the water pipeline grant funding doesn't relate to upgrading the Guyra water treatment plant, and I know that the raw water from Malpas requires additional treatment to normal water. So I just would like a quick update on that. I would like to know the levels of consumption between the two communities and who's responding, and I think that's a matter that we should all know. I mean, if it has to be delivered in confidence, so be it, that's fine. And furthermore, there's a lot of concern in the community about the impact of horticulture on the catchment in Malpas, and I think that we ought to, we're quite entitled to know some information around what will happen going forward in relation to the supply of either raw water or treated water to the Tomato Farm number 1. Once again, if that's a matter that needs to be disclosed in confidence, so be it. We're all quite well versed in dealing with commercial in confidence matters, and this request is that this council, this governing body, have that information. And I think that the address we had, 8.2, Guyra Main Street project, we've had some updates, but you'll note that I'm asking for some financial information about how much is left, because how much funding is left once those tanks have been withdrawn. And look, the reason I've brought these is because I have asked questions, as some of you know, and I've been told that the staff are too busy. Councillor Gray has reinforced that view. I don't agree that a very quick update to councillors is something that is too onerous for staff. I mean, we've got a very, very responsible position here to make decisions, and I think we need to be given all the facts. And in fact, the Act requires us to make decisions based on proper briefing, proper information. So I put them forward simply, quickly, and ask for your support.
Okay, Councillor O'Brien. Can't hear you, Councillor O'Brien.
On the library one, as you know, the whole library issue has been causing an enormous sort of anxiety around the town, and a lot of the times for really unfounded reasons. As I investigated more, I'm seeing that. However, there's been a couple of issues raised with me, and one was a simple thing like in the draft operation plan, the action was to implement the library strategic plan, which many people in the community have interpreted there's a plan already there and it's ready to be kind of, ready to go, rather than a plan that is yet to be put into, that is yet to be developed and is yet to be written. So this ambiguity itself is causing some anxiety, and that's why it's probably important that in situations like this we're able to knock some of those things on the head and say, no, that is an ambiguous kind of statement. In fact, the plan has yet to be developed and yet to be written, and that we need to get the community involved to develop and write that. But people are looking at the action and sort of saying, oh, they're talking about a plan, as if it's already started. And I've had to answer this maybe 20 times a day. So I think in situations like this, they come to a council meeting for a reason. A public statement can be made, it can be made in the media, and people can knock these things on the head. I don't think this is a waste of time. I think it's an important part of the public discussion with the community about a range of issues that I'm also getting, now that I'm working in town, here non-stop. So I'm a little bit baffled by the idea that us bringing certain issues as the governing body to have them clarified in a public setting with people here, and for it to be reported public as a waste of time. It's clearly one of the most important roles that a councillor can do, is to make sure that we have the information that we can. And I know on the library issue, a lot of it is just, rumour. But at the same time, this is the time when we can make concrete some of those ambiguities, some of those questions, some of those anxieties. One of the most important jobs we can do, and I'm baffled by anyone thinking it was a waste of time and that you'd be asking staff to do anything onerous by just responding to that. Thank you.
Yes, Councillor Gray, you speak against.
Yes, please. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll reiterate again that the information requested has already been given. I think what's concerning, very concerning, is that the nature of the motions are implying that we are not being looked after as councillors by council staff. This information, I'll say it again, it's delivered in emails, in our project summaries that we get each month. It's presented in the workshops. It's available to us at any time, and it has been available, and it's quite actually insulting that implying that we do not, as councillors, have a relationship with the executive to be able to get this information when it has been provided. If it hadn't been provided, I would go, yeah, go for it. But it has, and it is wasting the time when it's already been, the council staff have already done the work, they've already provided the information, And yet again, it's still not enough. It's not enough because it's not delivering the questions or the answers to detailed questions that really don't even need to be answered because the answers are there in black and white.
Speaker 4. Councillor Robertson.
Well, that's a very interesting argument that the information has already been given. And if it has been given, and I'm not sure it has in all cases, then it should be a very simple and low cost, low time procedure to collate it all and put it together so that it's available to the community and councillors in a simple, accessible format. Because that's really what we want. Obviously, if it's been given in, say, 20 separate emails, then it's going to be hard for every single councillor to collate that information. What we need is the simplest and easiest way to have that information ready, because there's been such an angst in our community about some of the problems, some issues in relation to council. And if we can provide the correct information, then it will enhance council's reputation and create goodwill. And I think that's what we all want, or at least that's certainly what I want. I want a council that is responsive and helps our community and does everything it can to benefit our community, because that's what we're there for, to create the best possible outcomes for our community.
Councillor Withers, I presume you wish to speak against?
Yes, yes, I do. I'd like to support Councillor Gray's comments that the information is readily accessible. Most of what's been asked, I've asked from the senior leadership team or from the appropriate council worker for that information, and I've had it for a fair bit. Maybe it might have been the way I asked the questions, or maybe it might have been the timing of the day that I got that, but majority of all that, I already have the information. So if I've got it, and then I'm assuming I'm no one special, so I'm assuming all the other councillors should be able to have it as well. Because we're doing them all in Global, I've written a few things here for each one. 8.7, for example, one of the issues I had was what levels, when they were triggered. Spoke to the relevant staff member, said this is the plans. It's on our, wasn't on our website, should be on our website now. So that's easily accessible on when the trigger levels are there, following a 5-point plan, I think, which is a recommendation from state for that most councillors within the state should follow that 5-point plan. I do recognise that the split that was there for a little bit, and that Armidale to Merrick did have 7 points, 7 trigger levels, but we're now aligned and have 5 from the old Gyra and council. There should be 5 levels there. And what I'll just get to it, because on every question I've written why. I've written, why are you asking this? What is the end point of asking these questions? So that's something I'd like to know in the return, in the right of reply from the mover, because I'm happy, as a councillor, I actually agree that if there's certain questions that need to be asked, then they should be asked the way that they have been in the notice of motion. But if you're going to ask a question, make it a good quality question, or for lack of a better word, a silver bullet, and make sure you've got a good endpoint on why you're asking that, so the community knows why you're asking that question. So I've just written that there, so just as a reminder for the mover, just so that could be answered for me. And just down the bottom, I've gone for, just till I get to the right number, so I know which one I'm talking about. 8.11. It's my understanding it's more of a contractual issue with the business and the council, and that question sort of relates to some of the comments I've heard in the community, and some of the community, based on a decision we made a few council meetings ago, that when we put that particular business was able to access the water from the pipeline before it got to the treatment plant, we made that decision the same day that council put us on level 3 restrictions. Some people in the community have put 1 and 4 together and gotten 7, and it's created a lot of angst and everything else like that. if you're going to ask questions around one business, you've got to ask questions around all other businesses that are using water. So, but you can't really, because my understanding is there are contractual issues between the council and the business, so that can't be asked. So, again, my biggest issue on is why are these questions? Well, what's the Here's your questions, but what's the end game of the questions? That's all I wanted to know. Thanks.
Speaker 4. Okay, Councillor O'Connor, you're right to reply.
Sorry. Thank you, Mr Mayor. Look, Councillor Widders, the reason I think I explained in my opening statement is that I think, and I still assert that these are questions, most of which we haven't got answers, or given the time frame, a couple of things I do know now, which is the source of, I think I know, we've been told the source of the carting water and the amount that, I think that's $1 million. But at the time that I put this question in, that hadn't been announced. So at the time, it was a genuine request to find information that I didn't know. The why is exactly what Mr McTavish said last night, that we are all working together and we understand the situation with respect to, we're in a water crisis. We're actually probably in a climate change crisis, but we don't need to debate that. But we're in a water crisis, and clearly, as elected councillors in the governing body of a council, local government area that is in a water crisis, it's incumbent on us to know the facts so that we can talk with our community about it. And that's the reason, and I do assert again that these are not questions, the answers to which are already known or have been provided. They simply aren't. That is factually incorrect. With great respect to Councillor Gray, her assertions are inaccurate. The reason that I want to know, I mean, I don't want to drag this out, but the reason that I would like to know, for example, the 21st Century Library Strategy Plan is because it's a matter that the community, that's been put out by council, the community is asking me about it, and I don't know what to say to them. When I ask for this information, I'm told that I'm wasting staff's time, so I've got to put it in a formal place so that the community knows, and I hopefully can get a quick answer on that. We just want a little bit more information about what that 21st Century Library Strategy Plan is. I don't think it's unreasonable because my task under the Act is to be able to talk to people and explain what's going on. That's why that one's there. With respect to 8.7, which you made in detail, the point of that question is that I want to know where the trigger levels were at the time that the restrictions were brought in, because I'm concerned to know how this whole process of restrictions came in, and my questions that I've asked about that have been basically, I've been told to go away. So I do want to know the history, and I don't of where the dams were at, and we don't have one policy at the moment. I think at our last council meeting, the CEO carefully explained to us that what we are going to have is a single policy, but at the moment we're trying to work off two separate ones. One is the 2005 based Armidale Demaric plan, which has 7 trigger levels, and the other one is the Guyra Drought Management Plan, which was brought in just after the merger commenced in about August 2016, and they have 5 trigger levels from memory. So they're quite different, and they relate to different bodies of water, different reservoirs, and there are different percentage trigger levels. So that's just background information that I think it would be helpful so that once again we can communicate with our community about what's going on and help them to join in. I think it's really important. I really commend you, Councillor Widders and Councillor Gallatley, for doing those videos about saving water. But we're going to incentivise people to save more water, and we may well need to, we may well be moving into a really, really dire situation with water. Maybe we're not, but we may well be. And so it's important that we all understand how rapidly the dams, the reservoirs have declined. I could have asked, how much of what's left is related to siltation, which can't be accessed for a water supply. I mean, that's another question that I don't know the answer to that I've been asked by the community. So I could go on and on. I don't want to, but I do want to know the financial the reservoir level, all these issues. They aren't, I would not have put them in if they were matters to which we had all already had specific answers given. I think they're additional questions. And I absolutely reject the suggestion from Councillor Gray that there's an implication here of, it's adverse to the staff in any way. I mean, our job now is to support the staff, and I totally intend to do that. So, I mean, that's just to suggest that I'm trying to insult the staff or send some other tacit message of distrust or that we're not being supported is really quite naughty.
Time, Councillor Robertson. No, O'Connor, sorry.
So
No,
I put it.
Councillor.
I just want those answers. Thank you.
Just a point of clarification, we did at the explaining the budget to the community at Black Mountain on the 6th of June. There was a question by Councillor O'Connor to the CEO regarding who was carting the water, who was paying for it, and that was all explained. So just to give you reference. So put the motion to the councillors. Those in favour of the motion? Those against? Motion lost. Item 9.1, which is adoption of the operational plan, revenue policy, etc. Move Councillor Widders, Councillor Murat. Councillor Widders.
Yeah, just quickly on this, I just want to thank those in the community that wrote in submissions, and also those that attended the community meeting at Black Mountain for their input, and also thank our speaker for the day, Elizabeth. There we are. Thank you for your comments. It's now, I believe it's now time to endorse and adopt these policies and plans mentioned in this motion, so we can move forward with what has been recommended. I just, in regards to some of the comments that have been said here today, I know there are some environmental issue concerns around the budget, but that's not the only part that's been impacted by the budget that we put on, and we really need to clarify, because the comments made today are making it out that that's the only area of our plans and everything else that's been affected. And there are other places. Environmental issues, as a lot of you, the councillors will know, are a big concern of mine, but it's also, we've got to be able to make change within environmental issues, we've still got to be a council here to be able to make that change. So sometimes you've got to take 2 steps back to make 3 steps forward, but so that's part of that. But if any of my fellow councillors have any quality comments or amendment, may they speak now if they ever hold their peace.
Before I ask Councillor Murat, there is that slight correction, and that's not a number correction, that is a change from per hour to a per event basis. So, and I think you all got email to that account. Councillor Murat?
I'd like to support this budget. I think the staff have done a good job to put out a budget that is even a slight surplus without cutting services or having to put any great impost on the ratepayers. We haven't had to apply for a rate increase above the normal CPI. I think it's a step in the right direction, allowing the council to get back on a sound financial footing. In regards to comments made earlier with regards to the state government and funding, to apply for extra funding when we can't spend what we've already got would be retrograde. We need to be able to develop our budget so we're continually doing surplus budgets. In a couple of years' time, one of the biggest loans this council's got comes off the books, which was a loan we took out a few years ago for the decontamination of the Centro site. And if we can produce cash flow positive or negative budgets, not negative, balanced budgets for the next 2 or 3 years, once that loan comes off and we've proved to the government that we are financially secure and we have some capacity to borrow, then we can go forward and try and do some of these projects we've put on hold. The other thing is that the budget, while we're accepting it now, is not set in concrete. The staff have taken a very, very conservative approach to the projects we can do this year, and I no doubt that they'll be trying their best to achieve that. And I have great confidence in our staff that they will do better than that. They will get ourselves ahead. And come the third quarter budget review, we can review what we've left out and maybe drag some of those projects back into this financial year. So while it looks like we've just set aside some projects, there is the capacity later on if the staff achieve what they've promised to do or better, we can bring those projects back. So it's not ruling out some of those projects, and it mightn't be we fully undertake that project, we just might be getting that project shovel ready this financial year, but there's an opportunity come the third quarter budget review to see what we've achieved and maybe bring some of those projects back. So the budget's not set in concrete, it is a little bit flexible, and I'd commend everybody to stick to their guns. We need to be fiscally responsible and put this council in a position where down the track we can say that we've secured the future of Armidale region financially.
Thank you, Councillor Matt, and I also concur with you about the work that council staff have done in getting us to this position. So, my thanks to them. A speaker against the motion, Councillor O'Brien.
I just want to ask a question if I can. I would like to know about an issue that does have an impact on the budget, and what is the state of the funding of the Kempsey Road? When is that going to, when are we getting that money? In what time frame? Is it staged? Is it in one hit? Can it be tabled at some point so that we get an appreciation of the impact that this will have on the budget and where the money is? And the full 16 million?
Thank you, Councillor O'Brien. I might ask the CEO just to comment on this.
Through you, Dr. Mayor. The deed for the $4.6 million, which has been promised by state government, has been completed, and we're just by us, and we're awaiting the return from the department for that money. We have anticipated that work will commence on for that 4.6 million from the start of the new financial year. Yes, it is. Yes, the first portion of it is within this budget.
Okay, if there's no speaker against, I'll put that motion. Those in favour? Councillor Witters, you? Carried.
Maybe we could have a division.
Sorry, Councillor Watson?
Maybe we could have a division on this.
No need to. It's not a planning matter. Moving on to 9.2, which is the marketing of rates and charges, making of rates and charges for 2019-2020. Move in a second, please. Councillor Bailey, Councillor Gray, Councillor Bailey.
As the budget's predicated on the making of these rates and charges, I don't think we've really got a lot of choice, so I'd move the adoption as recommended.
Councillor Gray.
No comment.
A speaker against? Okay, I'll put that to vote. Those in favour? Carried. Now for the 9.3, which is fixing of mayor and councillor fees for 2019-20. A mover, please. Councillor Witters, Councillor Galetti, Councillor Witters.
Nah, it's just a standard sort of thing most years.
Councillor Galetti.
Same.
A speaker against? Okay, I'll put that to vote. Those in favour? Those against? Got your vote recorded. 9.4, council meeting cycle, 2 parts. Mover, please. Councillor Witters, Councillor Martin, Councillor Witters.
Oh, I just want to make an amendment. Somebody, I'm sure.
So Witters, though.
as the mover, I'll have a chatty. I'll move this motion, but so we can have a bit of a chat. But discussion with one of my young friends earlier reminded me that maybe within our code of meeting practice, there's something in there in regards to 4 o'clock meetings, and there's a thing there for 10 a.m. meetings. So if we have a 10 a.m. meeting, we have to change our code of meeting practice. But I'll pass on to the seconder. And thanks to my young friend for pointing that out.
Councillor Martin.
I think this is pretty straightforward as far as I'm concerned.
Okay, speaker against the motion?
Yep.
Councillor
Oh, sorry.
Brian, you're speaking against?
Yep. How did this 10 a.m. thing happen again? We've been through all this.
This is the new year, and every year we set the dates and the time.
Okay, well, let me just say as strongly as I said last time that what I completely appreciate that 2 councillors do have to travel in winter, and I'm hoping that there may be something we could do about that. You can stay at my place, get a motel, get a room. The whole point of council meetings is that it's a public meeting. That's the whole point of them, that people can come and observe or join in or have their say. It's pretty well the most important aspect of it, that it is public. The idea that we're making it out of range for most people, and most people, by the way, work from 9 to 5. That's what most people do. Most people aren't business people or farmers, or most people are 9 to 5 workers. To sideline the public, this is a really strong signal of sidelining the public. It is very important that council encourages the community to engage with council business, to observe council business, to participate in council business as much as possible, because that's what we're here for. It's actually the central aspect of council, is that it's a democratic process and that we are responsible and representing the people, and that they should be invited to engage. 10 a.m. just sends a really, really wrong message. It sends an elitist message. It sends a message that, you know, you're not invited, you're not welcome if you don't have the availability to have the, to have the flexibility to change your time, which is what most people have. There's only the elite few that have the possibility of changing that. Please don't do this to people. It's just, it's just not right. Don't change it to 10 a.m. Thank you.
Just a point of note, you mentioned councillors, but there's also another group that we're concerned with, which is staff. Because most of the staff stay here until the end of the meeting. We're responsible for their safety as well. So, Councillor Gillespie, you're speaking.
Can I make an amendment on A and B? How do I? I'm new at this. How do I move this process?
Councillor Gillespie, you say wish to move an amendment, and you mention your amendment, and then you have to get the mover and seconder to see if they agree.
Okay, I would like to move an amendment on A, which is Wednesday is fine, but I think we should have all the meetings in Armidale. And in B, I would like the meeting times to start at 4 o'clock.
Councillor Widders, since you moved, do you accept that? Councillor Mutton? No. So it's amendment. So we've got an amendment moved by Councillor Gillespie and Councillor Bailey. So Councillor Gillespie?
Righto. We've been 3.5 years since the merger of Guyra and Armidale started. We had the administrator, yes, he thought it was a good idea to share meetings for a start and share it about to get the ball rolling, whatever. I mean, we're talking about the staff. We have to there's 20 odd people with councillors and with staff. There's 20 plus people that have to commute to Guyra, which is half an hour up and half an hour back, say. So there's a fair few hours involved there. The more cars on the road, on the New England Highway probably, so safety, I think it would be a lot safer driving down here to have your meeting, seeing we're all actually Armidale people, except for a couple, which aren't Guyra residents either. So there actually isn't a Guyra resident at all. The cost for council to go and set up our our streaming, etc., etc. But when just all your travel time, I don't know. I've never claimed on travel, but I presume that a lot of the councillors here do. I just think it's time for us to move on and be one. I think we're keeping Guyra as us and them situation by going up there. We work very hard. I believe the council and the staff work very hard for Guyra, have worked very hard for Guyra in the last 3.5 years to show that they are part of the Armidale Regional Council. Look, I just think we've got to have our meetings at head office. I can't see any reason why we would be having them up at Guyra now. There's a couple of Guyra residents that do turn up, and bless their hearts, lovely people. But I think I just think we should have them in Armidale. And on B, look, your day's buggered. If you start at 10 o'clock, you really haven't got much else you can do with your day after the council meeting. We can have a day's work and we can turn up here at 3:30, 4 o'clock, go through. When we're talking about staff going to Guyra would be a lot more of an inconvenience for the staff, everyone that's in here now who aren't Guyra residents. I've just that's my point of view anyway. So thanks for listening to me there.
Councillor Bailey.
My concern is twofold. Firstly, lots of regional councils have more remote areas. Tamworth has Manila, Barraba and Nundle. They don't rotate council meetings around. Secondly, Guyra residents come to Armidale a lot. A lot of Guyra residents live in Armidale. They come here for accountants. They come here for solicitors. They come here for doctors, all sorts of things. So I don't see it as a problem that we hold the meetings here. Because the converse argument is, okay, if we continue having meetings in Guyra, why don't we have them at Burralong? Why don't we have them at Wallamumbi? You know, at the end of the day, we are a council. 90% or 85% of the population lives in Armidale. People can travel here for the meetings. And if they want to make an individual representation, I'm sure that one of us would be happy to go to Guyra and meet with someone who had a concern. So that's the first point. Secondly, as to the 10 a.m. time, I agree. I think we're also discriminating in the future because we will go to a council election September next year. A lot of people will look at it and say, 10 o'clock, I can't get time off to go to council meetings at 10 o'clock in the morning. If you are in business, if you are in an organisation where you're not at the senior level like Councillor Gray, you might well be in a situation, and I can remember that it can be difficult for people to get leave. So I think it's important that we maintain a 4 o'clock meeting. It allows people to do business during the day. And if you are employed, you can normally get an hour off or work through your lunch hour or start an hour early so that you could go to a 4 o'clock meeting. I think going to a 10 o'clock meeting, it shows that we're not really in focus with the business community and we're not really in focus with people at work.
Just to a point of note there, Councillor Bailey, that the September next year, in this time next year, this council should be deciding on its 2020-2021 meeting schedule. So it could be a different time then too. So, Speaker 4. No, I'm just pointing out that you mentioned that the September election next year, it could be totally different. Councillor Gray.
Are we against now? You've had 2 4s, yeah? I do not support this amendment. I believe that not having any meetings in Guyra shows a disrespect for the Guyra community. It encourages a division that is already in the minds of members of the Armidale Regional Council, whether they're in Guyra or Armidale. It plays to the Armidale-centric nature of Armidale Regional Council, which is the biggest fear that Guyra community has. They deserve the respect. They have the facilities. They are part of our region. They deserve the respect and not to be ignored just for convenience. I find that just mind-boggling. If it meant that we have meetings in Wallamumbi, absolutely, let's go there and let's see what it's like to travel back, the same as other councillors have to do the travel each month. Maybe they get a rest from doing the travel. So why not? Let's put an amendment up there and let's go to Wollongong. I believe that this amendment overall takes us back rather than brings us together as a region. It divides, it is an investment. To go and have meetings in Guyra means it's an investment in that community, and we need to continue that. To think that we're not one already, well, that's probably correct, and this will just make that even more evident. As far as the 10 o'clock in the morning, look, I'm neither here nor there as to what time it is, so whether it's a work, I would arrange work and ensure that I'm available if it was 10 o'clock, so please do not use my working as an example for making it 4 o'clock.
A speaker for the amendment?
I'd like to move a slight procedural motion, which is that we vote for the amendment in seriatim, so that we vote for A and B. I mean, my view is that I support the continuation of meetings in Guyra for the reasons set out, well, more or less by Councillor Gray, but I'm certainly deeply opposed to the 10 a.m. substitution for all the reasons set out by other councillors supporting that.
So you're moving a procedural motion. Is there a seconder? Councillor O'Brien. So, Councillor O'Connor, you want to expand on your argument?
Sorry, I beg your pardon?
Do you want to expand on your...
No, I just think that they're two separate issues and they should be voted for separately.
Okay, I'll put that to the vote that we treat this in seriatim. Those in favour? Carried. So, vote on... so we go back to looking at part A at this stage. So, Speaker, I think we're up to 4. So, Speaker for the amendment, part A. If not...
No. I'd like to raise a suggestion that since we're in the 21st century and electronic participation is now a lot easier than it used to be, that maybe instead of just holding meetings directly in Guyra, we encourage electronic participation via the internet so that residents of Guyra can have their say in council chambers, and if they don't have access to the internet, then they can also view the live video stream, and that might sort of satisfy all people. And so I'll foreshadow that as an amendment or foreshadow that as a second motion if the amendment is lost.
Okay, I'll put that there for... what are we up to? Councillor speaking against, I think. If there's none...
I think speaking against the part A now, which is basically deleting Guyra from the meeting schedule.
That's right. Now, Councillor Withers has the right to reply, if there's no other comments.
I just didn't want to jump in after the issues of the last meeting, whether I got to speak as long as what I did. To this amendment, and I've written these words very carefully, one of the most ridiculous things I've ever heard. Regional means regional. I advocated very early on, maybe even the first meeting we had as a group, that we have our meetings regionally. That I pushed very hard for Tingha to get a meeting, which is why we had our December meetings at Tingha, because we have to represent the region. To Councillor O'Brien's point and to the Mayor's point about safety for people attending council meetings, by having your meetings backwards and forwards between Armidale and Guyra, it allows the safety of the community, which again has been mentioned, that people who want to have their say from Guyra can then come to the Guyra meetings and have their say at the Guyra meetings, and then they don't have to stick around and wait around and go home, the same way as the staff and the councillors under that concern. So that gives them that opportunity. To Councillor Robinson's point, to go along with Councillor O'Brien's concerns about elitist and everything else. Yes, in the past, I agree with Councillor O'Brien. I think council meetings were, and council in itself was designed for those who have been there, done that, had the ability to, oh, I don't have to work, so I'll be part of council. But there's a few of us here that have made that exception, and we're changing the rule. It's no longer the norm. But also with the wonders of 21st century technology, those who would normally not get to see what goes on in a council meeting now get to, either through YouTube, Facebook or whatever, and there's real-time connection. So if someone, as may have almost missed a vote there earlier, someone has sent a message about the point we're actually talking about, so you're still getting first real-time interaction with that. But I'm still very supportive of keeping them at 4 o'clock at the moment. I think the point maybe it might have been Councillor Galletley about, or someone over in that direction, you get to do whatever you got to do during the day. So it's not a full day taken off you, because sometimes if you start at 10, let's be honest, you give them more time in the day, and then the meetings will probably go longer, whereas 4 o'clock is sort of constrained by time, which then makes the meetings go a lot quicker. I've written here to Councillor Bailey's point about him going, well, let's go to Woolloomoomba, let's go to Ebor. As I said earlier, I've mentioned that we should at some point try and do that. And to show that we are doing that, we had our community meeting at Black Mountain to show that we are a regional council. Even though the facilities there may not have been whiz-bang schmick, we still took them there and to give that community notice that they are part of the Armidale Regional Council. So I'm at a loss for this amendment for the moment. Thanks.
Okay, we are voting on the amendment, and the amendment is up on the screen that this is part A, that all meetings are in Armidale. So can I have a show of hands of those councillors who vote that all meetings are in Armidale? 3. Those against? The amendment is lost. Moving on to item B. So, because we're doing seriatim, part B, the amendment was that goes to 4 o'clock. So, it starts at 4 o'clock. Yes.
Just a question, Mr. Mayor. Before this, I have written it down, and I do apologise to my fellow councillors that I didn't mention it recently. Again, if we vote on this, as mentioned earlier, we have to change our code of meeting practice, because our code of meeting practice is set down for... No, it's not? You sure? 4 o'clock? We don't have to make any amendment to that?
I just get clarification, if I may. 3, Ms. CEO, can we get Natalie to comment?
Sorry, councillors, I do have the code in front of me, and they should be in your drawers, actually, under your desk. If you look at, or they're not page, but if you look at section 3.1, page 3, 3.1 has a statement that says the council shall, by resolution, set the frequency, time, date and place of its ordinary council meetings, which is what we're doing.
Alrighty. Happy with that explanation? Then go for your life. Get in and vote. Use your democratic right, my friends.
Okay, councillors, we've had a right reply from Councillor Witters on this, so...
But not on A and B, we've still got to debate B.
Yep. So, Councillor, I think Councillor Galletley, you've explained your reason for 4 o'clock. Are you happy with that?
Can I just add a couple little, it's probably nothing too much, but I think seeing Bradley's had his little ramble, it should be only fair if I can have a little ramble too.
No, you don't, unless
no?
unless you're clarifying your part B.
Yes, I'm most definitely clarifying B, that we changed to 4 o'clock. Thank you very much. Yeah. Can I speak on that? Yes. Yeah. Look, some of us are employed here, so I mean, we do have to work at jobs. Basically, so we haven't got all day to get out of bed or do whatever we do. But I just think 4 o'clock's good. I don't think it's too inconvenient for staff. If we can run a meeting along, you know, and get out of here by hopefully 6 o'clock, 5:30, 6 o'clock, 5:30 on a good day, 6 o'clock on a bad one. I think 4 o'clock's a very good time to start the meeting. So thank you for that.
And now,
Can I foreshadow another motion, that if this motion for 4 o'clock is lost, that we hold the meetings at 12:30, so that people who are working at least can duck out at lunchtime to participate in council meetings.
as I presume you mean 12:30 p.m., not a.m.
I said 12:30. I didn't say PM or AM. But I did say lunchtime.
So, Speaker, that this is still the amendment. A speaker for the, against the 4 o'clock. Councillor Martin?
That would be me, the landed gentry farmer. Which I have to tell you, it has got absolutely nothing to do with the decision that I make, because it doesn't matter where the meeting is or what time it is, I have to travel the same distance, so I'm not actually worried about that. I believe that if you want to come to a meeting, regardless of what time it is, you will get there. When I used to work in town in retail, which I did for a number of years, if I had a doctor's appointment at 2 p.m, I would have my lunch hour at 2 p.m. So I don't think that's an issue. I think the issue falls down to what actually suits the councillors and the council staff. And I actually think an earlier start is good. One, we are fresh and able to really debate everything. Sorry, Deborah. But two, the staff are already here for the day, so we're not actually paying them to be here now at this sort of time. So to me, 10 o'clock is a great time to start. There's plenty of other councils that start at 9 o'clock in the morning, and I don't think they have any issue with people getting there if they want to get there. Thanks.
A speaker against the amendment? For the amendment, Councillor Connor?
Yeah, I just want to speak for. Look, most councils in urban areas have their meetings at 6 for the reason that that's the time when people can attend, and with great respect to you know, the excitement of digital connections and YouTube and all the rest of it and live streaming. The fact is we need people to be here to interact with this meeting. There are occasions when people can legally intervene in our meetings, but also, as Ms O'Hara has shown, it's important for people to be able to get here to have their say. It's just, I mean, we've made a concession by having it as early as 4 p.m. I just think it's really a very bad look to the community to chop and change, and you know, it's sort of redolent of sort of the landed gentry with no, and I'm not making any suggestion to anybody or retirees or people who can sort of wander in at 10 o'clock and have a cup of tea and, you know, have a good old sort of chat. That's not what larger councils do. They meet usually at night and get on with, you know, a substantial debate after they've been at their place of business or work, and it's just not the case that. I also just don't agree that it's only for councillors and staff. It's actually about the public participating and feeling that they have a place in this community and that they can come to council meetings, and not everybody can, you know, have the flexibility that they can pick and choose a lunch hour or something to compensate. A lot of people just have to work at 10. Thank you.
A speaker against? Councillor Barrett?
If we start at 10 o'clock and the meeting goes for 3 or 4 hours, do I get lunch?
Councillor Mrapt, that is one option of the 10 o'clock meeting, is to have a lunch afterwards. Okay, so if there's no further, Councillor Withers, you've already had your right of reply in general. Do you want more, or you've had enough? He has a right to write a reply since we've done them seriatim.
You've got no one else to blame but yourself. So next time, bring him here and have a good look at it. I'm joking, come on. No, I'm a big fan of the 4 o'clock meetings. It allows me to pick my kids up and drop them home from school and get here on time. So thanks.
Okay, I'll put the amendment, part B, that the meeting start at 4 o'clock. Those in favour? Those against? The amendment's won. So now, councillors, we've better put up what the final result is, and we have to vote on it. So the final result is the original part A with a modified part B. Is that just, are we? I hope you're all following this. Okay. We're going to vote on this as is. Those in favour of that structure as is. Those against? So, good. We're done. 9.5, the review of council committees.
Mayor, I have a procedural motion to put on this matter, which is that this matter be deferred to the ordinary council meeting of July 2019. I can give my reasons if you wish.
I'll need a seconder first. Councillor O'Brien, so Councillor O'Connor.
Yeah, Mr Mayor and fellow councillors, I believe this is a very major decision. We've only recently been apprised of the extent of the revision that's being recommended. We haven't really had time to go back to our committees. I know a number of councillors do wish to talk with their committees. A number of committees are proposed to be able to be dissolved without any reference to those voluntary committee members. There's so many issues here. I think there are some very good ideas in here as well, and I think we just need time, and also the contribution of Councillor Tiley, who's currently overseas, will be back very soon, to basically go forward on this together. So some time to work through with staff and with each other how we can do this would be provide a better decision, and is not going to be anyway. That's my reasoning for this procedural motion.
Okay, I'll put the procedural motion. Those in favour of the procedural motion? 4, 5, 6. Those against? So the procedural motion is won.
Sure.
9.6, which is Local Government New South Wales Annual Conference. There's 4 or 5 points to this. Can I have a move and a second? Councillor Withers. Any second it? Oh, Councillor Gray. Councillor Withers.
Yeah, I'll speak to this. I just had to get through all of 9.5 to get to it. It seems like this comes up every year. I think last year, I don't know, did we send anyone last year? Can't remember. Don't think we did we? Did we? Yep. Alrighty, awesome. Well, I'd like to move this motion then, and just anyone else. And I don't know, when are we, how are we nominating people to go to that as a question before I move it?
Councillor Withers, what we'll do is we'll vote on the recommendation in front of us, and then we'll go to open session to have a voting on the delegates or the people we send as councillors. So, Councillor Gray?
No further comment.
Anyone who wishes to speak against? Councillor Robinson?
Yeah, I had a question as well.
It seems odious, but I don't know why it's there.
Well, my question related to D and E, in that they appear to be contradictory. And
Councillor Robinson, I think you're correct. So let's delete part D as an error.
And could I also make a suggestion or a procedural motion that councillor representation be deferred until the meeting at which the motions are presented? And the reason for doing that is simply that the councillors who put forward those motions might be most interested in attending the meeting. And if we do it at the same time, that will facilitate the best representation for our council.
Right, councillor, just bear with us, make sure we of the timing.
You have to add council at the end of that. Or you could simply say the best representation of our council.
Councillor, just bear with us. We're just checking to see whether we have to get the nominations first before the notice of motion. Councillors, the voting opens on the 15th of July. It doesn't say when it closes, so that is pre our next meeting. So I guess it may be safer to nominate the people today rather than wait until their next meeting and find out that the period closes. So, Councillor O'Connor, you've got a very concerned look on your face.
Yeah, what voting commences on the 15th of July?
The nomination, the registration for delegates to, voting delegates to the Local Government New South Wales 2019.
The relevant date is the closing date for those for us to inform the Local Government Association of our voting delegates.
Or can I suggest an amendment to my amendment that simply says that unless the closing date is before the next council meeting, councillor nominations be considered then, when at the same time as motions are submitted.
So, councillors, in closer examination of it, it's the early bird is where the 15th of July. So I think most probably do not have to make a decision on councillor attendance at this stage. So I suggest we what's the wording for lay on the table? I recommend.
Firstly, in light of our financial position, early bird means a discount, and I think we'd be very smart to put forward two names, even if they have to change. That won't affect the discount for early bird. So I would suggest that we do return a form for 2 early bird discounts, so as we can maximise the discount.
No, it doesn't.
Councillor O'Connor, no, it doesn't. It's that's been in the past. It doesn't. There's no statutory requirement. So you're making a procedural motion. Do we do that? Hang on. Seconder for the. So Councillor Murat is a seconder. So you've made your point. You want more? Okay. Those in favour of the procedural motion that we vote 2 people on today. Vote. When I say that, vote 2 representatives here as voting delegates. Carried. So, Councillor Robinson, you were making an amendment. Is it changes that we suggested up in the board according?
No, sorry.
Well, my understanding is that Councillor Bailey's amendment was not that we accept nominations today, but that we register 2 early bird delegates to whom we don't have to name them at the moment. Is that correct, Councillor Bailey? Through the chair?
I would suggest we have to register them because they're, if we're going to nominate 2 people, they'd have to put it through. Yes.
But once again, when does early bird close? It's a closing date that's significant, not the opening date.
Sorry, they do have voting rights, so we have to name who they are. So, and that procedural motion's been passed. So,
Correction, I thought we were voting on what Councillor Bailey actually said rather than that motion there.
the procedural motion of Councillor Bailey was we go for the early bird, which is to register 2 voting delegates. Yes. So, where were we up to in this? We've got.
I just can't believe this. Are you telling us that the early bird ends on the 15th of July?
No, I said it opens on the 15th of July, and Councillor Bailey suggested that we take advantage of the early bird because the cheaper registration.
Yeah, I agree with that, but the relevant date is not the opening of the early bird registrations; it's the closing of them.
And that Councillor Robinson, is not here. So we could, if we waited to delay it until next meeting, we may miss the early bird registration. So
You won't.
the procedure motion has been put and it has been carried. So is there we're going to go ahead that part D has been removed and now we've got 4 sections. Is there a speaker where we're up to for it? Or against?
Well, I'm for sending delegates and voting delegates. So.
For the motion, that is. Then we'll
Well, in that case, I'll go for my previous amendment, that unless the closing date for early bird registrations is before the next council meeting, council nominations be considered at the next council meeting.
Councillor Robinson, I'm a little bit confused at how we can handle this because we have a procedural motion and we're not having a meeting until the end of July. So if we accept your amendment, there may be a chance of not having anyone voted. Is there anyone wish to speak against or for? Otherwise I'll get Councillor Witters if you're right to reply. Councillor Witters?
Okay, just quickly. I know we're going into open session here shortly around Councillor O'Brien's concerns about whoever puts up an issue should really go there to push their case at the meeting. Like so, if someone wants to put a motion at the local government conference, they should be the voting delegate, which was Councillor Robinson's, I think, issue. But with a good robust discussion, which gets mentioned a fair bit here in the next open session, it doesn't matter who we send or who asks the question. We should have confidence on the person that we send putting forward the case of whoever writes the question.
Okay, the right of reply has been done, so
no.
That Councillor Connor, you can't. So I'll put that. That's the 4 parts up there. Those in favour? Those against? It's carried. Now, can I have a move in a second? We go into open session. Councillor Witters, Councillor Gray. Yes, to suspend standing orders. Witters, Gray, those in favour? Carried. So, let me just clarify one point that in 2017, the Mayor, Deputy Mayor and Councillor O'Connor were the voting delegates approved by Council. You attended, but I'm talking about the voting delegates. 2018, it was the Deputy Mayor, Councillor Bailey, who were the voting members. So I'll put it that it's a good opportunity to let people who have not had any experience going to local government in New South Wales to attend as the voting delegates. So can I have any nominations, please? Councillor Gray, you wish to nominate? Yep. Okay. Councillor O'Connor has been to the previous in 2017.
Yeah,
I'm trying to just get fairness with
no,
other
no, I
councillors.
understand, although it's actually interfering with the election process, which I don't agree with, but I'll withdraw my objection. I'll also withdraw my nomination on the basis that Councillor O'Brien, who's a newbie to being a voting delegate, I think should be the voting delegate.
So we've got Councillor Martin, Councillor Gray, Councillor O'Brien, is it? And Councillor Witters? So any other nominees? Oh. And I'll nominate Councillor to get a nomination up there. Sorry? Yeah.
Can I clarify a point? What guarantee do we have? What guarantee do we have?
Councillor O'Connor. Oh.
What guarantee do we have that the councillors who are voted as delegates will follow the intent of the motion, movers of the motions that were passed?
Can I respond to that?
Yep,
Mr. Mayor?
Councillor Gray.
In response to that, I think that whoever is voted in, just the same as we believed in you last year, so I would assume that that same trust would be put into whoever goes this year.
May I suggest that whoever the voting delegates are, they should support the outputs of the council, even if they don't agree with it. That's part of the policy. So, can we have, what I'm going to do is it's going to be a show of hands, and I'll go through each name individually.
Can I just, before you, I'm sorry to interrupt, Mr. Mayor, but I would like to attend, and my understanding is that it is the right of any councillor to attend. I'm just not pressing, so I just want to clarify that at this point.
Everyone can attend. We're talking about the voting.
Thank you.
The ones that are going to be supported by council. So you're quite welcome to attend as an individual.
I'll be an observer from this council, I think.
So I'm going to call for a show of hands for each of the members as we name them. There's only 2 positions, and what will happen is that as the lowest number is voted off, so we go around in circles. So it's a bit of circle work for a while. We do that all the time. Yes. We got 2. You have 1 vote, and the loser, if you want to call it that, person with the lowest votes gets eliminated. 2 twice, yep. So I'll do it according to what is up there on the board. No, you just vote for. I'm going to raise those in favour of Councillor O'Brien. People raise their hands. Those in favour of the 4 of them. So, okay, you ready? Those people who want to vote for Councillor O'Brien. 3, 4. Those people who want to vote for Councillor Martin. 4. Yeah. Councillor Ledley, you voted already, did you? No, you will in a minute when. So, those in vote for Councillor Martin. So there's only 2 for Councillor Martin. So 4, is it? Yeah. So there's 4 votes for Councillor Martin. And Councillor Withers. Those in favour? 3. Did you vote twice, Councillor? No. No, once for each round. Oh, so we. Oh. So I think we better start again. So we're voting on one at a time. You put your hand up for those people that you. So if it's Councillor Gray, that's first. Sorry, I missed you before, Councillor Gray. And we just go around. So Councillor, 1 vote each round. So round 1, Councillor Gray. Councillor Gray, those in favour of Councillor Gray. What? So there's 1 for Councillor Gray. Councillor O'Brien. 4. So Councillor Martin. 4. Was it for 1, 2? 3? No, I didn't vote. I was trying to show you how to raise your hand. So what was that again, for Councillor Martin? 3. And Councillor Withers? 2. So Councillor Withers is removed. Oh, sorry, Councillor Gray. So now we've got Councillor O'Brien. Vote for Councillor O'Brien. Yeah. This round? Round 2, that's 4 again. Councillor Martin? 5. And Councillor, who's the, that's it. And Councillor Withers. Oh, shit, sorry. Councillor Withers. My apologies. So the voting delegates by the look is Councillor Martin, Councillor O'Brien. No, there's only 2. So can I suggest, get a move and a second and we go back into open session, please? Councillor Robinson, Councillor Withers, those in favour? Right, can Councillors Martin and Councillor O'Brien be registered as the voting delegates for the Local Government New South Wales 2019? Those in favour? Thank you. You all right? That was very confusing. 11.1 time limits for CBD car parking spaces. Councillor Withers. Seconder. Councillor Martin. Councillor Withers.
Alrighty. Good to see that there's been some action on this now since I think we've voted on this a few months back. So I'll leave it at that and pass it on. Councillor Martin.
Yeah, a lot of time went into organising ways to deal with the traffic issues around the town, and I understand that there's a lot of people that feel that there should be 3, 2, 1, whatever. So professionals were brought in to give us their opinion, and this is what they've come up with, and I think that we should run with it for some time and see how well it works for our region. And yeah, I think that was all I was going to say.
A speaker against. Councillor Bailey.
I'm extremely concerned that we haven't got enough long stay car parking in the southern part of our area. And I think that Tickham Lane should be 3 hour. I don't think it should be 2. I think it's too short. We haven't got enough. We've got a lot of people that work in the CBD, and we're really not facilitating their parking. They come in and spend money in town. They come in and go and eat in the mall. They go and do all sorts of things, and we're not facilitating that. Also, I think by limiting a lot of the parking to 2 hours, it does discriminate with people that come into town to do a variety of things, and I think we'll face enough flack from that. But I am not happy with the fact that the road above the Anglican Cathedral is moving to 2 hours.
Speaker 4. Councillor Gillespie.
I think I do agree with the little. I think that the whole of it is fairly close. I think maybe a little bit of fine tuning in respect to what Councillor Bailey said. Looking at the whole scale, I commend Ambrose. I reckon he's done a pretty good job with it. The 15-minute stuff is the best thing that it's gone completely. Look, I personally think when I went through it, I thought it was a really good, and maybe if we treat it as what we say, a bit of a living project, and if it does have to be altered down the track with what Councillor Bailey said, I think that might be the way to go. But I think it's a very good plan myself.
A speaker against. Councillor O'Brien.
Overall, I think it has to be done, and I'm for it, but there is some aspects that has concerned me a little while. For example, there is a lot of people that work in community services along Rusden Street. That's a whole area where Challenge, Armidale Family Support, and a whole lot of other areas before we get to Taylor Street. And having worked in that area, we all had an alarm. We all had to run outside and change our cars around every 2 hours. And we really just swapped car places. Can I swap with you? And we did this all day, every day. It seemed a bit strange, weird, but I wondered how you cater for people who work all day in those services. I mean, they are doing silly things like swapping their cars every 2 hours. I'm not sure what the purpose is. They go there every day. There's only a few parks for them. And I'm just wondering, how do we cater for people that work all day that has to come outside and run and change their cars all the time? That's kind of strange. I do really like the whole overall plan. It has to be done. But I wonder how we cater a little bit more for people who work in the CBD, particularly in those service areas.
Speaker 4. Councillor O'Connor, you wish to speak for the motion?
No, I want to just raise a matter about the 3 hour parking in and against speech.
Councillor O'Connor, I didn't understand what you meant.
Oh, sorry. I've got a problem with 3 hours, so I need to speak in the slot for the against.
Okay, Speaker 4. Councillor Robinson, no?
I want to foreshadow an amendment. And the amendment is that council consults the community on parking time limits.
You're a seconder for the amendment? No seconder, so lapsed. So, Speaker 4 against. Councillor O'Connor?
Oh, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Look, I'm just concerned. From the look of this, there's a complete deletion of all 3 hour parking spaces. Is that right? In the CBD? I really think that's going to take us back about 6 years to 2013 when we had all the ladies who wanted to get their hair done, all the people with frail-aged and young children concerned. And I just want to speak to my own experience coming into town on the one day when I actually had time to go shopping, and I had to go shopping the day before I flew to some place out, not Australia. And I can tell you that it was a wretched nightmare not having a 3 hour space somewhere that you could use, because some people come to, especially people from the outlying areas like Ebor and Mullumbimby and those places. In that, I used to come in from Guyra. Without some place where you can know that you've got at least two plus hours, people in Armidale stop and talk to you. And they also, people accidentally meet and say, let's have a coffee. And that is an actual, especially for people from outlying areas, it's a really important social facility that we offer, and I think you're going to find problems with coffee shops and things, which we've got plenty of now, thank goodness. And in my case, what I was trying to do was, deal with the post office, sorting out the things that you need to do when you're away or going overseas, buying stuff, getting documentation done. It was an absolute frenzy of anxiety because there just wasn't time to get it all done without having to keep moving your car. So I really beg that we have some 3-hour parking somewhere.
A speaker 4. So, Councillor Withers, your right of reply.
May have again read this wrong. The CBD is broken up into 3 different sections, I think. Heart, what was the other 2? Core and Frame. There should be longer parking on the outer lying areas of that. To quote the great Snagglepuss, heavens to Murgatroyd that some people have to walk an extra block. And that then goes to one of Councillor Robinson's great points of health and fitness, that more people walking the extra block get a bit more exercise. So that all works around, I suppose, in the one area. I think one of the main ideas of this plan was to get traffic moving from the in and around the main part of the city, so people can get in and out and get a bit more flow and get a bit more people coming into that part of the city. So I think, again, as has been mentioned, I'd like to thank the staff that have put in the effort for this. And again, it's one of those decisions that we made a fair while ago and it's now being enacted, so we need to support it.
Okay, those in favour of the motion as it stands. Those against? 5, 6. So, motion's lost. Don't know what we did. Item 13.1, cash investment report. Councillor Robinson. And seconder, Councillor Muriat. Councillor Robinson. Councillor Muriat. Okay. Does someone wish to speak against? Councillor O'Connor, you wish to speak against?
Oh.
Okay, I'll put that to the vote then. Those in favour? Carried. 13.2, which is the monthly financial report. The mover, please. Councillor Morat. Councillor Gray. Councillor Morat.
No comment, Mr Mayor. I'm quite happy with the way things are heading.
Councillor Gray.
Same here.
Speaker against? Okay, I'll put that to vote. Those in favour? Carried. We'll go through them one at a time. 13.3, which is the summary of resolutions. Can I have a mover and a seconder? Councillor Martin, Councillor Gray. Anyone wish to speak against, for? Those in favour? Carried. The 16.1, which is the minutes of the Community Wellbeing Advisory Committee. I have a mover and a seconder, please. Councillor O'Brien. Councillor Murat. Councillor O'Brien.
No, I think a lot of this stuff's been done already. A lot of the people in the advisory committee have already sent out all the information about the drought. We're forming those working committees. So I think, yeah, it's all going to plan, as long as we, can keep going with this. But yeah, no, that's all fine.
Councillor Murat.
No comment.
Anyone wish to speak against? Okay, I'll put that to the vote. Those in favour? Carried. Yeah. 16.2, which is the minutes of the Youth Advisory Committee. Councillor Witters, Councillor Morat, Councillor Witters.
I will speak to this because there is in there on part B, number 1, the Regional Council provide financial assistance for 3 of the members to attend the Luminosity Youth Summit. Really, I know there's money in the budget for that, so I really support that idea, having been at that meeting. I think it'll be a great idea for these young people of the community to attend that, and I have suggested to them that if they attend that they actually present to the council what they learn and what they expect to deliver from that. And I've also got there that they are, because they are a committee of the council, that they understand the council code of meeting practices and the social media policies and all that sort of stuff with it, so that they can work better and we can make it a better committee. So, yeah.
Councillor Moran.
No comment, Mr Mayor.
A speaker against? Okay, I'll put that to the vote. Those in favour? Carried. 16.3, which is the Community Wellbeing Advisory Committee for the 30th of May. A mover, Councillor Robinson. Councillor Morat. Councillor Robinson?
Well, I'd like to make a slight change to the wording and replace noted with supported in A, because we're now deferring decisions on the committee structure. So I think we should be supporting those rather than noting them, with the approval of the seconder.
Councillor Morat? So, Councillor Robinson, you do not get support for a modification. So, Speaker, Councillor Robinson, you wish to speak to it?
Maybe somebody else would like to second it with supported in there.
Amendment that the word noted be replaced with endorsed. Supported? Was it, which is your words, Councillor Robinson?
Well, I said supported.
Supported. We've got a new typist here, so please, we'll just have to take words slowly. So it's been moved and seconded by Councillor Connor. Councillor Robinson? Oh, sorry, Councillor Bryan. Yes. Councillor Robinson, you wish to speak, or you just...
Well, I think that the Community Wellbeing Advisory Committee is doing a great job, and I think we should support them in their actions because they are achieving tremendous benefits, or we expect them to achieve tremendous benefits for our community. And they will flow on to great things happening, and they've got a lot of interesting plans and worthwhile plans, and I think it will really achieve something in this term of council if we support them.
Councillor O'Brien.
I think it's already been said in this kind of time of flux when it comes to the committees that we're already on the track of creating working parties, and that's what this is. A lot of this is about. So should we end up changing, we're kind of in a really good position, our committee, to get cracking on that. So I think there's no problem, even though we are in a changing period, to support these working party initiatives. Yeah, so I think supporting's probably better than just noting.
Okay, Speaker for against the amendment? I get totally tied up here. Okay, if there's none, I'll put the amendment to the vote. Those in favour? Carried. So that's basically this standard motion anyway, so you've voted on this standard motion. Is that correct? So 16.4, which is Traffic Advisory Committee. Councillor Martin, Councillor Morat, Councillor Martin. Councillor. Councillor Martin and Councillor Morat. Okay, any speaker against? Okay, I'll put that to the vote. Those in favour? Carried. The 16.5, which is the Business Advisory Committee minutes. Councillor Gray, Councillor Martin, Councillor Gray. Councillor Martin. Anyone speaking? Yep. Councillor Bailey.
Who's preparing the brief for Ian Mason, please? Am I missed?
Councillor Gray.
It'll be a council staff that is preparing the brief.
What is the brief about?
CEO.
No?
Councillor Gray.
Actually, did you want to reply to that? No. Okay. The brief was around having having a brief to have a speaker like Ian Mason come to speak about the a business ecosystem for the Armidale region.
Councillor O'Connor.
Oh, look, my only comment on that is that that seems like a really great idea, and I hope that all the other councillors and chairs of committees in flux are included in that.
I'll put that to the vote. Those in favour? Carried. 16.6, which is notes the Audit and Risk Committee meeting. Councillor O'Connor and Councillor Gray, you speak to.
I just want to move it, and I suppose say that this is. We just had a day when quite a few of our external members were away, so it was we ended up being in Corit, and at our next meeting we'll clearly look at those notes to endorse them, so that they will then become part of the subsequent report to council on a actual minutes rather than notes. But I do think it's interesting to note that's a statutory committee, or a committee that's required by statute of council, and it includes quite a number of external members. And when they're all busy into financial year or whatever, you have this problem that you've only got notes because not everybody can come. So it's just a demonstration, I suppose, of what can happen when you've got a small committee.
Okay, Councillor Gray, you got any comments? Okay, I'll put that to the vote. Those in favour? Carried. Item 18.1, sorry, has all the answers are provided. So can I have a move and a second that we adjourn for a period of 5 minutes for everyone to have a rest? Councillor Witters, Councillor Gillespie, are those in favour? Good, passed. Councillors, we were moving into closed session. I don't think there's any visitors here, so can I have someone move and second that we go into Councillor Bailey, Councillor Withers? Those in favour? Good. So can I have a move and a second that the motions, that's Councillor Witters and Martin, that those motions passed in closed? Yeah, done. Those in favour? Good. So I hereby close the meeting as of 19:22. Thank you.